I'll bring the Butte-Silver Bow Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting to order for Wednesday, March 12th. Can we please have a roll call?
1 presiding, 10 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Please let the record reflect Commissioner Anderson is excused. Commissioner Walker, would you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item on tonight's agenda is any public comment on any items that are on tonight's agenda. If any member of the public would like to say anything on any item on the agenda, now would be your opportunity. Okay, seeing none, I will move on to the report of the chair. Chief Executive Gallagher informed me today that House Bill 547, the hearing date has been announced. That's March 28th at 3 p.m., room 405. The other thing I wanted to talk about was just to give the commissioners a heads up. I have been working with Butte-Silver Bow's IT director about the possibility of having our committee meetings able to be have the public listen to the committee meetings, and so we're working through that process of the best way to do that. We have a couple of ideas to try to get it here, so I am working on it, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have our Finance and Budget Committee and our Judiciary, Economic Development. Hopefully we can listen to it online. So I am working on that, and I'll keep this body up to date as we make some changes. Moving on to section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. It looks like we have 2 public hearings. We have communication 2025-110 and communication number 2025-111. Can I ask for proof of publication, please?
There was proof of publication, and it is confirmed.
Okay. There was proof of publication, so we'll continue on with the public hearings. The first one, communication 2025-110, Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 12th, 2025 regarding the addition of unanticipated revenue for the 2024-25 budget in the amount of $200,000 to assist with the redevelopment of the Phoenix building. Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council. I am Karen Burns, Director of Community Development. This grant came to the property owners at the Phoenix building through the Montana Main Street program. This was a special grant that they had put out statewide for redevelopment and reuse of existing properties. The Phoenix building ownership applied for this grant and did receive $200,000. This money does have to flow through Butte-Silver Bow as a pass-through. So this, we're asking to amend the budget to allow this expenditure to be made. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burns. Is there any questions from any commissioners? Okay. Seeing none at this time, I'll open the public hearing for communication 2025-110. I will ask for any proponents. If you would, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name's Reddy Frost, 2000 Roberts Avenue. I'm definitely a proponent of this. This is amazing that we're doing this, but I would caution all of you in our endeavors to not be exactly like Bozeman. We should maybe lay down some steps for more parking garages or somewhere to park so that our, beautiful uptown does not stay congested even during the tourism that we bring in and depend on in the summer. As the more affordable housing we have uptown, the more cars there's going to be, and that should be in the back of your minds when you're approving these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Second call for proponents on communication 25-110. Third and final call for proponents on 25-110. Okay, at this time I'll ask for any opponents for 25-110. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. At this time I'll close the public hearing for 25-110. Moving on to communication 2025-111. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 12, 2025 regarding the addition of unanticipated revenue to the 24-25 budget in the amount of $20,000 to assist with relighting of the head frames on the Butte Hill. Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, members of council. I am Karen Burns, Director of Community Development. This is another grant from the Montana Main Street Program. The Main Street Program here in Butte through George Everett did apply for this grant to assist with the relighting of the head frames on the Butte Hill. As we've seen, some of those have already been done. This provides matching funds to the other funding source that is going into the relighting of those head frames. And so they did receive $20,000. I believe the grant application was originally for closer to $50,000, but the state awarded them $20,000. So that does allow them to still move forward with the next head frame, and they'll be starting to work on that soon, I believe. So this allows us to pass this grant through for that project.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Yeah, Ms. Burns, I just got a question for you. It looks like they've kind of changed the way that they're lighting the head frames. Have you guys got any feedback on that yet? I noticed the ones they've done so far, they're doing the sides. And if you're directly in front of them, directly behind them, you can't see the lights. The old ones used to be lit on all four sides.
Ms. Burns.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, members of council. I am not aware of the methodology between front, back, side lighting. I do know that the newly lit head frames do have lights on the front, and what I would call the front is the side opposite of the hoist. And so there are lights on the front of the head frames. They kind of go straight down, and then they have a shape that can be lit on the top of that. So I'm not sure about the back side, but the lighting company that's doing those has, I think, done all of them the same of the new ones that have been lit.
Okay. Any follow-up question, Commissioner Callahan?
You don't?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess we can look into that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing for 25-111. Looking for proponents. Second call for proponents. Third, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Reddy Frost, 2000 Roberts Avenue. I'm a proponent of this.
Thank you. Third and final call for proponents on communication 25-111. Now I'll ask for any opponents. First call for opponents. Second call for opponents. Third and final call for opponents. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing for 25-111. Moving on to bid openings, number three on the agenda, communication 2025-88. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening on March 12th, 2025 for the 2025 Road Division Mill Fill Project. Mr. Neary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioners. We have this bid opening is for the mill fill project. The first bid we have here is Hollow Contracting Butte. Oh, sorry.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything appears to be in order.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, the total price on this is $683,238.26. $683,238.26.
Thank you. $683,238.26
Yes.
from Hollow Contracting.
The
Mr.
second
Gear.
bid is from Montana Materials out of Helena.
Okay. Just so the commissioners know and the public, the engineer estimate on this particular project is $900,000. It is on our bid sheets. Mr. Neary.
There is a bid bond of 10%. Everything appears to be in order.
Great, thank you.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, total price on this is $717,397. $717,397.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. 717397.
The third bid is from Hoffman's R&M Services out of Butte.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, the total on this is $774,045.40. $774,045.40.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. 774-045-40.
Yes. The final bid is from Jeffrey Contracting out of Butte.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, the total price on this is $698,555.70. $698,555.70.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. Final bid was 698-555-70. Okay, that concludes all of the bids for that. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to refer the bids back to the Public Works Department with a recommendation back to council.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to refer communication 25-88 to the Public Works Department. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. It seems that all the bids lately, our engineer estimate is so much higher than the bids we're getting. Who's doing our estimates?
Mr. Neary.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Fisher, that's what we budgeted for. This wasn't designed by an engineer. That's what we budgeted for. We didn't know what oil prices were going to do.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there anything on the question? So this motion is to refer it to the Public Works Department and wait for their recommendation. Okay, seeing none, would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to Communication 25-89, Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening on March 12, 2025 for the Excelsior Avenue Reconstruction Phase 3 for the Roads Division. Mr. Neary.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Commissioners, we have 4 bids on this project too. The first one is from Hollow Contracting out of Butte.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, the total amount on this is $1,175,225. $1,175,225.
Thank you. That's $1,175,225. Looks like the estimate on this particular one is $1,236,000 even.
The second bid is from Montana Materials out of Helena. That's the bid form.
Don't worry, Mr. Neary, no one's looking at you.
I know.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything does appear to be in order.
Thank you, Mr. Neary.
Chairman Morgan, the total price on this is $1,094,925. $1,094,925.
Thank you. That's $1,094,925. Is that right?
Yep.
1,094,925.
The third bid is from Jeffrey Contracting out of Butte.
There is a bid bond of 10%, and everything appears to be in order.
Thank you.
The total price on this is $1,079,630.75. $1,079,630.75.
Thank you. That's 1,079,630.75. $1,079,630. Whoa, 1,079,630. Better get that right for the paper.
And the final bid is from Hoffman's R&M Septic Service.
There's a bid bond in the amount of 10%. Everything appears to be in order.
Thank you.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, the total on this is $1,079,687.50. $1,079,687.50.
Thank you, Mr. Neary. That's $1,079,687.50. That concludes the bids for this particular communication. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to refer communication number 2025-89 back to Public Works with a recommendation back to council.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to refer communication 2589 to the Public Works recommendation. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you.
No nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to presentations. Communication number 2025-109. JP Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12th, 2025 for Director Brian Gutkin, Department of Corrections, to discuss future DOC plans in Butte-Silver Bow. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioners, I'd like to welcome Director Gukin, and he's going to do a presentation about future plans of the Department of Corrections as they look forward to future possible sites and things. So that he will come up and do the presentation for us. So Director Gukin, welcome.
Great. Director Guten, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Brian Gutkin, Gootkin, Director of Corrections. Been doing that for about 4 years. Prior to that, 27 years with Gallatin County Sheriff's Office, 8 as the elected sheriff, and then prior to that, 4 years active duty, Malmstrom Air Force Base. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'd like to have our Deputy Director, Eric Strauss, help me with the presentation. Great. So I believe, to preface this, I believe that we're already good stewards and good partners with Butte-Silver Bow. By that, I mean we work closely with Mike Thatcher and CCCS. When I first became director 4 years ago, we worked hard to work with Chief Executive, and to purchase Acadia down south. And we were able to purchase that, and we've got a contractor on board, and I am proud to say that we'll be helping Mr. Thatcher move the majority of our offenders from Uptown Butte down to that location by July 1st. So that I think that shows that we're good partners to begin with. Secondly, what we'd like to do is do a brief presentation, because I'm sure you're going to have some questions. One thing that well, let's go ahead, Eric, if you don't mind. Okay. I can't read that because I don't have my readers, but we are full. So that's just our population for secure beds. And what I mean by full, we hardly have any open beds, and that's with shipping 600 males out of state to both Arizona and Mississippi recently. So what we're trying to do as a system is work closely with our partners to try and get people moved, to build new beds, both secure beds and community corrections beds, to be able to take care of our population, but more importantly, to help our communities be safe. So this is just a snapshot of how many people we have currently in our facilities. Next slide, please. So what we pay attention to more than anything nowadays is our jail populations. We were over 500 backed up in the county jails, to include Sheriff Lester's jail. With the moves that we've made out of state with the governor and the legislature's assistance, we've got that down below 400, and we're going to show you some numbers for that. The big thing that I want you folks to pay attention to is males awaiting prison and then females awaiting prison. So we've been able to address the males by moving them out of state. That is not an option for our females, and our females proportionately are actually, the population is going faster, going higher than our males. Next slide, please. So this is just your jail, and I'm proud to say I have worked closely with Sheriff Lester. I've heard him loud and clear, and we've got folks moved out of your jail, but that just gives you an idea. I think we've got 6 people backed up in your county jail, so that's not too bad compared to some of the other jails in the state. So again, this is just a breakdown of if you can see that females, we have 50 backed up in the county jails, 53 males. Problem with females is there's no place to put them. Males, we have all sorts of different facilities that we can put them in. We've got Shelby, we've got Dawson County, we have the men's prison. The only place that we have for females is the women's prison. Next slide. Is this you? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Morgan and members of the council. My name is Eric Strauss. I'm the Deputy Director for the Department of Corrections. We want to comment on a few things that we're doing to address some of those capacity issues that we have across the state. First off, for our male population, last session, in the 2023 session, there was a bill passed by the legislature that gave us about $150 million to expand our low restricted area in our Montana State Prison at Deer Lodge. So we're getting ready to break ground on that facility this spring. That unfortunately really is just a matter of updating our current facilities. Our low side place right now is not really conducive to a good environment for offenders. It's bad for our staff. Its line of sight is terrible. So this is going to increase capacity a little bit, but that isn't the long-term solution to our overcrowding issue. Fortunately for us, in this legislative session, the governor's budget and the legislature seems poised to pass another package that would include expansion on the some more housing units to that current project that we're about to undergo. That by itself will give us the capacity that we need to be able to bring the 600 out-of-state offenders back to Montana and then be able to accommodate them going forward, assuming that our crime rates don't continue to accelerate and the population that needs housing in our prisons doesn't continue to grow. So we have a good plan in place right now to address kind of the male problem within our state. But as the director alluded to, we don't have a good solution right now for females. So there was a committee last interim during the legislature that talked about capacity concerns within the Department of Corrections. And they came away with two recommendations for us to consider for the female population problems. One was to work with a private party to look at potentially building a new prison somewhere. And the second was to collaborate with local governments to find a suitable location for that prison. So that's what we're focused on now. So our interests going into conversations with local governments have to do with some of these priorities. One, we need room for a 400-bed facility in order to handle the current population of female offenders, but also to address kind of the growing nature of that population. We need capacity for our programming. We need to be able to rehabilitate them, so we need places for that. We need building for administration, we need industries, and we need a yard for them to be able to recreate. Another priority for us is to have quick access to land for immediate development. We anticipate having this money, assuming that it does pass this legislative session, to be able to commence construction relatively soon to be able to address those concerns. The vehicle for that is it's currently in process right now with the Montana legislature, has not quite been introduced yet, but if you're interested in looking at the language, it's LC 1119. We anticipate it being introduced sometime this week after they return from their transmittal break. It's sponsored by Representative John Fitzpatrick and is looking to designate about $250 million to the Department of Corrections for the development of a new secure women's facility.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is just an open discussion. We're here to visit with you just to start that conversation. We've met with Chief Executive. Prior to this, we've already met with Yellowstone County, with the Commissioner, Sheriff, County Attorney, Chief of Police. We've met with everyone. We're doing the same thing here, and we're going to continue to do that. We have to have, if one community doesn't want us, we have to be able to move forward regardless wherever we decide to go along with that partner. So these are our four options. So that's the reason why we're here tonight.
So when we're considering the options for a potential facility, obviously we were struck by the Acadia property that we're currently in the process of moving the pre-release offenders to starting sometime this summer. It's ideally suited from our perspective, and that's why it caught our attention. It meets kind of those requirements that we're interested in exploring as a potential solution for a female facility. One, the pre-release will be there. There'll be services on site already there. We own the land. We own that 25-acre parcel currently, so our barriers to construction are reduced just in that regard. And the other exciting thing about that particular property is we've had preliminary conversations with the potential partnership with Highlands College, that if this were to come to fruition, they're an interested party to help us even improve the land package so that we can have a better facility serving that offender population. They're interested in it. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but they have a strong interest in moving the Highlands College campus to the main Montana Tech campus, and they think that provides them a tremendous growth opportunity for their student population. In the event that this were to happen, we've already had preliminary conversations about them about purchasing that facility, which makes a lot of sense from our perspective, just because it gives us a lot of the package that we would be looking for in the development of a new facility. So, combine the properties to reduce the overall cost of the construction, and then we can use those existing buildings that are on site already for our administration, a lot of our programming, educational classes, some of the, the industry type work that we do, career development, and all those types of things. So the combination of those two properties really gives us a really ideal situation for serving that offender population in Montana. And I do want to just point out, for those that aren't familiar with the current Montana women's prison, it is right now on South 27th Street in the corridor of Billings, Montana. It's a bizarre location for a prison, but it really works fine. I think one of the initial reactions that people have to the creation or the building of a new facility is, what impacts does that have to the local area? What impacts does that have to our citizens, et cetera? And women are a different type of population than men. I think in the time that we've operated this prison, we've had one person attempt to escape, and there was no negative harm to the community, and it seems to operate quite well within that corridor. So it's an interesting, comparison for when we're talking about different locations, about when people express concerns about being in a civilized and populated area. So, do you want to talk about this, or you want me to? Yep.
So I'm not going to read from it, but exactly what Eric was just talking about. First of all, what you see on TV about prisons, and especially women's prisons, is not real. Just like Yellowstone, it's a different environment than our male prison, and so what this does, the benefits for our partnership with a community, is our big focus. Almost every one of the women that are in prison are coming out of prison and going into the communities, including your community. So our focus is, let's get them better. Let's give them every opportunity to succeed, to include careers, not jobs. And I know that you guys are looking at some possible development and some businesses that are coming in. You need a workforce. We have a workforce, and we want to get them ready and get them succeeding out in the community. And then a great thing about if we were once we build a new women's prison, that opens up that prison in Billings to be able to give us 250 more beds. That helps our system, since we're already cramped. And then another great thing is we've got MSP right down the valley here, so we would be able to share resources, really work closely together, have the men's prison and the women's prison pretty much co-located, and that means a lot. That saves taxpayer dollars. And then again, I just talked about the workforce development. I cannot tell you, we've asked the legislature at the men's prison. Our focus has always been furniture, and really, really expensive furniture that people can't afford, including myself. Now what we're focusing on is repurposing our vocation to be able to do. So for instance, Arizona, where we ship our people down to Arizona, I've been down there twice. I've toured. They have a building that is dedicated to vocation. So they have carpentry, shop, classroom, electrical, shop, classroom, HVAC, shop, classroom. That's exactly what we're talking about doing at the men's prison. And if we were able to locate here, that's what we would use the Highlands building for, if we were able to acquire that. And then again, we're here to be transparent. We have nothing to hide. We just want to be a good partner, and that's the reason why we're here for the conversation.
Thank you both for the presentation. Is there any questions from the commissioners? I have a couple. I noticed on your list you had like 4 possibilities. Can you tell me what the ranking process of that is going to look like? How do we make sure that each community is getting the fair shake in making sure that it's the right fit for that community?
Mr. Chair, that's a great question. I think the first step is what we're doing tonight, and that's just visiting with you, being open, telling you that we're interested. We're not forcing you. This isn't Big Brother and the state coming down and saying, we're doing this. This is us trying to work with you. That's exactly what we did last month when we went to Billings and met with Yellowstone County. I will tell you that Yellowstone County is challenging because, as you're well aware, they have some serious crime issues over there. They have some serious jail overcrowding issues. So they're trying to go to the public and get a jail expansion. So they have a lift, and they have a lot of challenges there. And then the other part of that is that we don't own land there. So we would have to co-locate with them and purchase land from them. Those are challenges for us. And believe it or not, for once, the state is ahead of a local entity where we can actually move faster than they can, because they're right now, they're in the study process. They're not even ready to go to the voters yet. And as you could tell from Eric's deal, hopefully this session we will be approved and be able to move forward. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure, and then I just have one follow-up on that. You mentioned the positives of having that located within the community, job creation, that type of stuff, but what about the negative? I mean, that's what people are going to want to focus on. And as we sit here as commissioners, what do we go back to our people and say, you know, this is a great thing because of work retention, but let's talk about the negative side. I mean, what's the process of identifying those factors and making sure that the community is aware of it as this thing starts to come together?
So that's a great point and a great question. And I am uniquely experienced because I was the sheriff that said, not in my backyard. I was the sheriff that said, I don't want a pre-release. And I was the undersheriff at the time when we went to the voters to get a new jail in Bozeman. And I had that community saying, not downtown, not in our neighborhood. Even though the jail was already there, they didn't want a bigger jail there. I will tell you that as the sheriff, that was the safest community in Gallatin County by far. And so I think the perception is probably the biggest challenge, because I don't want a prison. I don't want to be a prison community. I don't want that stigma. But I will tell you that we will work closely with whichever community that number one, it's not going to look like the prisons that you see. It's going to be professional. This is a rehabilitation campus. I already said the majority of these women are going out into the community. So our focus is to give them every opportunity to succeed and to go out into the workforce and have careers and take care of their families and be productive members of the society. That's our focus. The challenge is prison. Prison. So I think with the right partnership and the right vision of what we make that look like, and I really believe, and I've been down there numerous times. I just went down there tonight to drive around Highland, and then I drove around that whole area. The only neighborhood that I could see was across the gun range. So that's the neighborhood that's closest to where we're talking about. Again, what Eric said was one escaped. Women are a different demographic, different. So I think the long answer, but the short answer is education to the public and making sure that they understand this does not make our community, your community, less safe. As if nothing else, it makes it more safe, because then we are moving people, and then we're already showing that because we're moving our people out of uptown down to that neighborhood. So these are convicted felons that are already going to be located there July 1. So I'm sorry for the long answer, but I get it. As a past elected sheriff, and as you all being elected folks, that's the number one question that's going to come up is, how does this make us less safe? So.
Sure, great. Thank you. Chief Executive Gallagher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, and thank you, Director Gookin. They came to me and presented to me a little bit about what was going on, and there's some things that I have concerns about that I shared. One, the perception of the prison, which he's addressed. There's positives and negatives to this that we have to look at as a community. The positives are there's job creation. There's building, construction that could happen down in the area. The negatives could be impact to the community and just even if it's perceived impact. The other negative could be, and is it's a state-owned facility, meaning that there's no property tax that comes along with that. And we're funded in this local government by property tax. That could be a negative as well. Because we're having services that are impacted, but we're not bringing in property tax. But that happens. We have that with the university and other properties as well. But it's something to think about as we do this. Another positive could be the impact of Highlands College, which has been talked about going up to Montana Tech on that campus. That there's some challenges to that as well. That all that property that's up there has not been vetted out as far as that's part of West Side soils and where they could locate and things like that. So there's things to consider that we have going forward. As we talked about, the Sally Port at a prison site is busy. They buy their products locally. It could have a positive impact on vendors in our community and stuff. So there's a lot of things that I think that the community should look at. And that's why I asked for the director to come and present to you, because I'm not taking a position one way or the other on this. I think this needs to be brought to the council and that the public needs to be made aware of what the possible impacts are. So that's been the conversation. I have talked to John Fitzpatrick about this and what his intention is, and there's potential options in here, and I think that they're exploring what all those are. And so I think all of them are good intention, but I think we need to really look at what the impacts can be for the local government.
And Mr. Chair, if I could add just one thing, especially on the Highlands part of it, and I'm gonna defer to Eric really quick here, but we're working closely with OCHI and the governor's office. We understand that is a priority to move those students up to Montana Tech. Again, that's a win. So if we can be a part of that, a partner to that, and we believe we can because we're working with the legislature and they can see the benefit of it's a win-win. So we're moving those students up to Montana Tech, and Eric can talk more about his conversations with them. And then we repurpose that, and it doesn't need a lot of repurpose. When I drove around it tonight, it's exactly what we want for vocation for females to be able to transition those people, give them the training that they need, and get out into the workforce. So I do believe it's a win-win. And I think that can be a part of our education to the public.
Yeah, I'll just add in my conversations, Mr. Chair, with the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education, is they've had a longstanding interest. I think they've gone to the legislature, I think, the last 2 or 3 legislative sessions and haven't had any success generating the support for that move. This kind of came tangentially to us in conversations with people at their offices that this could be the vehicle to make that happen. So I think we're excited to partner with them. We've talked about partnering with them just in terms of workforce development, much less in a kind of a more physical property area. So I think this gives the conversation some credence in terms of providing the resources necessary to make that move happen, and then provide us the avenue to get to a facility that ultimately would be ideal from our perspective.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Butte's really never been one to turn their backs on vulnerable people. And while the offenders have committed crimes, I do believe there's a lot of social drivers that make vulnerable people get into bad situations where they are desperate and they commit crimes. So I'm excited to hear about this proposal. I'm excited about the partnership with Montana Tech. I'm really looking forward to learning more about it and being able to consider it. So thank you for being here. I do have just a question based on what you were saying about the female offenders kind of growing faster than the male offenders. What do you think is the cause of that?
Director.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, drugs. That's the simple answer. It's they are by far, almost every one of those offenses and offenders that are in the women's prison is drug related. And I would also point out to you, you made a great point. Again, a big difference between our female population and our male population, and this is not to downplay the male population. Many of those female offenders are trauma victims themselves from their families, so it's generational. So we're trying to break that, and many of them are moms with children. So our idea is to get those moms back with their kids and winning. So again, a little different than the males, not downplaying the males at all.
Follow up. Commissioner Healy.
I guess part of what I'm going to make is a statement. In reading our police reports, a lot of the arrests are parole violation, parole violation, parole violation. And then we hear from the sheriff, there's no room at the jail, so we got a in one door, out the other. They don't even bother arresting them. And I know this by experience, okay? So that is a concern that this population is going to increase in our community, as well as just reading in the paper how all the homeless people are going to start coming into Butte. So we're not just looking at more parole violation people in our community, we're looking at more homeless people in our community. So I was just wanting to make a statement when I'm hearing this, and I get you guys need somewhere to put them, but I just feel like we are inundated with them already.
Director.
Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that's a great point, and that's the system is so complex. It's not just as simple as people being housed in a cell. So one of the things that we have to deal with on our side with probation and parole, what you were talking about, is our challenge is the jails are full. So when we have a probationer that is misbehaving, we don't have the opportunity to put them in a county jail for the weekend for 72 hours to have a timeout and to readjust their behavior. That is a problem, and that does not make our communities any safer. So that's the reason why we're working with the legislature and the governor to move 600 people out of state, free up those jail spaces, and work with the sheriffs as a retired sheriff to work with them to be able to open those beds up and allow us to be able to do exactly that. Instead of getting to the point of revoking them, which then it's whirling disease. Instead of doing that, if we can have the 72-hour hold and give them that time out, that makes a huge difference in the deterring of them getting back into the system.
Follow up, Commissioner Healy.
Yeah, because from experience, some of these people are violent, and they don't spend but 9 in jail. So they're back out being violent again.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner, absolutely. And sometimes there's nothing better than a couple of nights in jail.
Thank you. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you both for being here. I just have a couple questions. I think that one of the reasons that Mr. Thatcher's relocation down to the Acadia building was, in my opinion, pretty well perceived by the community was because his organization has the ability to kind of regulate who comes in. He can kind of vet them and do those types of things. Obviously, that's not something that can happen at a women's prison. So I guess how do you tell the public, I mean, you say it's drugs, but obviously there are women in prison for other things, violent crimes and all of that. How do you tell the public, the assurances that the state can give, and, that there are still neighboring homes and communities, there's a school not too far away. Like, what assurances do you give to people, and what do you tell the public that, hey, this is going to be all right, this is smart, this is, whatever?
Director.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that's a great question. Number one, my experience as a sheriff running a jail, and now as the director of corrections. We are professionals. We run safe facilities. That doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes and we don't have bad days, but we are transparent, and we if we do make a mistake, we get better. But I think, as I told you earlier, this doesn't make you less safe. This makes things more safe, and also, a percentage of that population is from this community.
Follow up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So then my next question too is, this bill that is being proposed, I think you said it was $250 million. Is that full $250 million, if passed by the legislature, going to go to this women's facility, or is that going to be dispersed among other things in the Department of Corrections? And if it's going to be dispersed, I guess, what is the exact investment that you guys are looking to make in Butte-Silver?
Mr. Director, yep.
Yep, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, the short answer is yes, that $250 million is specifically earmarked for the, except for 30 million, so 220 million. And the difference with this one compared to what we've done in the past is this is a lease build to own. In the past, like the current low side building that Eric was talking about, that is us building those beds. This would be us paying somebody to build those beds, but we operate it. I had a conversation with Mr. Thatcher today. He would have every opportunity in the world, and he is very interested in putting in for that RFP to be able to partner with us to build that.
Is there any other questions from the commissioners? Commissioner O'Leary.
Chairman Morgan, thank you, Director. I've got a couple quick questions. Does the state pay any kind of impact fees in lieu of property taxes, sort of the way that the federal government does for federal lands in counties?
Director. Commissioner, excuse me, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, no, I don't believe so, but I can get that answer for you. They don't allow me to deal with stuff like that, so.
Okay.
But I can find out for you, definitely.
Follow up, Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, thank you. So in these in the community where this prison ultimately is going to get sited, is the expectation that when the prisoners leave that facility that they're going to stay in that community in the pre-releases, or will they be distributed amongst pre-releases across the state, or what is the plan there?
Mr. Director.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, they will be distributed throughout the state. So what we do is the offender actually has the opportunity to choose which pre-release center they want to go to, along with our case managers. We work closely with them. Obviously, we're not going to allow them to go back to a community where there's a victim. So we have a lot of things that we look at, but no, it is not dumping all of our offenders in Butte-Silver.
One more follow-up, Commissioner O'Leary.
Yeah, and I guess the final question is if the purchase of the Highlands College is a contingency of siting in Butte-Silver, or if is that a requirement to be able to acquire that facility, or is it just a bonus?
Director.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, it's a bonus, but I believe politically it helps legislators vote for it when we are a partner with them.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight. I got a comment to make and then some questions, please. First of all, I want to thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for working so hard to get that pre-release down where it's at and getting Mike fixed up. I know I was in close contact with him for the last 4 years working on how that was going to happen and whatever, and it took a lot of work, and you guys worked hard to get it done, and we appreciate that. You know, you bought the building, and Mike had commented here about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that it's the nicest facility in the state, and it is. Yes. You guys got a really, really good building, a nice piece of property. I think Acadia put $5 or $6 million into that right before they closed it. You got lots of property with it. You got a great facility.
Thank you.
The other question, one of the questions would be, so Montana Tech's campus wants to move the two together, and the facility down there is a very good facility as well. It's got lots of parking. It's a really quality facility. What are the odds that we can get as good or better if this does work out for us up at the Montana Tech main campus?
Director.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I'm not sure I'm tracking the question. Are you talking about the future building up here at Montana Tech?
Right. That's got to be funded. If we sell the building down there, we got to have the funds to build the one uptown.
Yeah. Do you mind if I defer?
Nope. Sure.
Chair Morgan, Commissioner, yeah, I mean, they've put a lot of thought to this potential transition. And in my just casual conversations with them, they have a clear vision on creating a very appealing campus for both the main campus, but then also the the Highlands College piece of that. I don't know the full vision for that, but I know they're talking about new programming building, and they think that in addition to having some new updated facilities, that it's going to be a big draw for those two populations, and they think that it'll contribute to significant growth for that campus long term. So they do have a clear vision. I'm not sure all the details on that, but I would expect that if this were the successful in due time, that the Highlands College campus at Montana Tech would be top of the line.
Commissioner Callahan,
Wonderful.
I guess the thing that I would say with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the way, from what I'm getting from you, Highlands would sell their property to you, and for it, state has to sell it at an appraised value. From there, this Tech would take that appraised value and build the building on the north campus, and if they need to put more funding into it above that, they would have to do that. You're not proposing a like-for-like building from Highlands up to North Campus.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. Yeah. So the legislature has already put in an appropriation for the Office of Higher Education for a $50 million appropriation. They don't have the dollars yet to utilize that appropriation, but over time they're expecting something with us to either come to fruition or maybe the sale to a private partner that would give them some of the funding that they want to use in order to create or complete the vision they have for the Montana Tech campus.
Sure. Commissioner Callahan, follow up.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Okay, now, one of the questions would be, so you need that facility soon. So we would be misplacing all the students on the south campus. So this has to move fast if that happens. We have to have a building built to be able to utilize for those students to go to school on the north campus. Is there a vision there? Is there, where's that at?
Sure. Mr. Chair, Commissioner, sorry, I'm in legislative mode. Yeah, I don't know the full details of it, but the people that I've had conversations with have assured me that they have the capacity in order to meet the needs of the South Campus, at least in the interim, while they do the construction. So they can be responsive to any needs that we would have in executing our vision, and they have the appropriate resources to meet their needs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. One last follow-up, I couldn't remember. Obviously, I would hope and imagine that this would go through an arduous public process, public hearings, all of that good stuff. And nothing in government moves quickly. So I'm just curious what type of timeline you guys are looking for. I mean, Acadia took 4 years-ish, whatever. What are you guys looking at on that?
Director Gooten.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I am well aware of both county and state government and how quickly or lack thereof we move. So we understand that. However, once we have the funding in place, and that's the reason why we're here tonight, is to find out where we're going to go and then to be able to start planning and meeting with the local jurisdiction to get a game plan together. We're good at this. We've done this before. We're doing it now. So we understand that we must and we will work through your channels and make sure that we're on the same page and we're working together and working at your pace, not pushing you. However, when we have the money and we're ready to roll, that helps things as well. And the other great thing is we already have a design. So we went to 3 different states, looked at 3 new prisons around the country, and we came up with our own design that we're building out at Montana State Prison. That is the exact same design that will be for the women's prison. So that saves time and money and effort.
So just as a follow-up to that question, I was going to ask, I always like to know the role that the commissioners are going to be playing in all decisions. And so what does that role look like from a commission standpoint? Let's say the bill passes the legislature, you get the funding for it. Is the state going to come in and say, hey, we're putting it in Butte, we've done our assessment, and here's where it's going? Or is that something that would have to go through this county or this body, probably our planning board for any zoning change if that needs to happen? But what would that process look like from your view, do you think?
Mr. Chair, exactly that. As a past elected sheriff and a county official, we are working with you. We are not dictating. Okay. So we're going to be sitting with you. We're going to come up with design. We're going to do all of that collectively And then we're hopefully, if you were interested enough, we would also go out and educate the public together and be able to explain to them some of the challenges, but also the wins that we could come up with. So long answer, short answer is this is not Big Brother coming in and dictating, and we are not going to make you do anything.
Okay.
This is working with you, and that's what we're here for tonight.
Sure. And then just one follow-up from Commissioner O'Leary's question, kind of more pointed. Our police department, as this facility moves into this community, obviously there could be an increase, things for them to work on. Is there any funding mechanism or any method that the police department of Butte-Silver Bow is not going to get taxed with, and basically we're going to go back to our constituents and say, here's your problem, you deal with it, even though you got the prison built? Is there any co-op or any, mutual aid type thing that comes with this for the police department?
Mr. Chair, there's not necessarily a co-op, but we have two perfect examples, and that is Powell County Sheriff's Office with Montana State Prison, and then we have the Billings Police Department where women's prison is. We can give you the number of calls for service, and it is very, very low. We have our own probation and parole, who are law enforcement. They're public safety officials. They can take care of business, and then we also have investigators that are post-certified. As a retired sheriff, we are not putting extra work on Sheriff Lester and his folks. If we can handle it, we handle it, and we can show you those numbers from those jurisdictions to help alleviate that concern.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you for being here. I so appreciate you being here and getting us in on the ground floor, transparency. I think this is where it all starts, by doing this and being open about everything. Rather than coming, later and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. So I so appreciate the openness and the transparency, and I think that's what makes things work, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Leary, follow-up?
Yeah, just one question. Chief Executive had talked about jobs in the community as a positive impact. Any estimation on how many jobs that would be, and then additionally, where that professional staff would come from, if you guys have done any studies about the communities that you've kind of pre-selected here, whether that is possible to draw from the community or if it's drawing from outside.
Director Gutin.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, that's a great point. And yes, absolutely. When we met with Sheriff Lester, one of the big concerns is you have a difficult time staffing the detention center. So we've done really, really great things at Montana State Prison. 2 years ago, we were at 40% attrition. So that was almost half of our workforce of correctional officers gone. We've done a really nice job of doing recruitment and retention, creating a culture to keep people. My answer is that we would work with the sheriff, because we're not going to come in and pay our people $5 more an hour and steal your detention officers. Again, I hate to harp on it, but I used to be a sheriff. We're not going to do that. So it's about 100 personnel. We were talking about it this morning. Those are all people, though. That's not just correctional officers. That's nursing staff, maintenance. That's the whole gamut of being able to operate that facility is about 100 FTE. But those are good professional jobs for this community.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners? Chief Executive Gallagher.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Morgan. I just wanted to say I did speak to Billings Mayor and also to the Deputy City Manager there, and Director Gukin is right that the impact to the local police department out there is negligible. They don't have they don't see an impact that way. So that part I don't see a concern. So that I did ask those questions with them, because as we're looking at this, what is that? How does that impact our local community? So I just wanted to say that I did follow up with Billings and ask them about that specific question.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, seeing none, thank you both for coming and presenting on this. I'm assuming you'll just keep us up to speed as things transition or change?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I guess the ball's in your court now. You know what we're talking about and what we're proposing. We would just ask that you discuss it, and when you're ready, come back to us, and we'll come down here and we'll visit with you, and we'll listen to your questions and concerns, and we'll figure out a way, one way or another, moving forward.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening. Okay, moving on to Communication 2025-116, Karen Hassler, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council Commissioners' authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12th, 2025 for Pat Burt, partner, Newland and Company PC, and the Finance and Budget Department to present a fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report, schedule of federal funds, audit findings, and related audit opinions. Director Hassler.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Morgan, members of council. Thank you for allowing us time this evening on the agenda to present the 2024 fiscal year annual comprehensive financial report. On your desk this evening, you'll find a packet which is just a portion of the complete financial report that was completed as of June 30th, 2024. The entire report can be found on Butte-Silver Bow's website. So at any time, if you're looking for additional information, please, you can go to the website to check that out. And we'll also provide a bound copy once they're available to every commissioner. Included in the packet on your desk this evening are the auditor's opinions, which will be discussed by Pat Burt. He's the lead auditor with Newland and Company, the management's discussion and analysis portion, and the basic financial statements. Overall, the county continues to be stable due to fiscally responsible policies, budgeting, and spending across all of our departments. I encourage you to read the management's discussion and analysis. It's roughly 43 pages. It has a lot of comparison information between this year and last year. It also gives a full analysis of the financial statements. If you do read that, and if you have any questions, I encourage you to contact our office for further discussion, as it is quite lengthy, and I don't think we want to read it all tonight. Next section is the basic financial statements, and that starts on page 79. These are all not numbered in order because they're just excerpts from our full report. But the basic financial statements include the government-wide financials, which are the consolidated financials. This combines all of the governmental funds together, but it effectively eliminates all of the interfund transactions, along with the business-type activities, which are proprietary funds, water, landfill, metro, those particular funds that operate more like a business type than a governmental fund. The governmental funds start on page 81, and they are reported by major funds, of which Butte-Silver Bow has 4 to report this year. The general fund, which is always a major fund, all of our ARPA funds, the ARCO Redevelopment Trust, which is also known as SARTA, and the Hard Rock Mine Reserve. And these funds have to meet certain criteria to be reported as major funds, so they are reported separately in statement form. The remaining funds are reported as schedules, and they can be found in the entire packet, which you can find online. The proprietary funds start on page 91. These are the business type funds, as we had discussed earlier. These are the funds that provide services for fees to the community. They are not businesses, but they operate as business type, and that in that way they cannot, by law or statute, be supported by any tax dollars. They have to generate enough revenue to cover their operations. So we pay particular attention to operating revenues and expenses for these funds due to this reason. In the case of water and metro, there are bond covenants that we are required to, where we have to have revenues that exceed our operating expenditures by certain percentages, which is 110% in this case. So we pay particular attention to those revenues and operating expenditures to ensure that we are collecting enough revenue in order to cover our debt service payments and that we are in compliance with our bond covenants. We have seen this ratio decline, particularly in our metro division, over the past 5 years. 5 years ago, we were at 177% of debt service in our ratios. This last year, we were at 115%, and that was after a 3% increase. So we use these analysis to look at where our rates are and to ensure that we have enough operating revenue to pay for our expenses and also cover those debt services. Starting on page 97 are the fiduciary funds. These are the funds that Butte-Silver Bow collects on behalf of other agencies such as the state of Montana and the school district. Butte-Silver Bow also invests the funds for the school district, and Newland and Company issues a separate report that can be requested from them regarding the school district's investment accounts. And finally, we have the single audit section, which is directly behind the fiduciary funds. This has a schedule of all federal awards that are awarded to Butte-Silver Bow, the revenues that we earn or collect from them, and also the expenditures related to those awards, and all of the audit opinions and the schedule of findings and management's responses to those findings at the back of the report. So again, we have Mr. Burt here to talk about his audit of Butte-Silver Bow and any findings, and also discuss our response to his recommendations. So, Mr. Burt, thank you.
Mr. Burt, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Burt. I'm a shareholder with Newland and Company. I'm the lead auditor for the audit. I've actually been involved in this audit for quite a number of years and made numerous presentations to this council. So I will start with, unfortunately it's not numbered, but it's at the very front of your packet, which is called the Independent Auditor's Report. And that is our report on the financial statements of the Butte-Silver Bow government. And as in prior years, this is what we call an unmodified or clean opinion, and that the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2024 are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted audit and accounting standards. And as you're aware, this financial statement itself is actually the highest level for governments and is submitted each year to the GFOA for certificate achievement. So your government prepares and performs the highest level of government financial reporting and has so for, I'm not sure of the number of years, numerous years. Yeah, 30 even potentially. This endeavor was taken on a number of years ago and has continued each and every year. So again, that's kudos to the local government for preparing that financial statement. But on the auditor's report, we list the basis for our opinions, we list management responsibilities, and in this engagement, management actually prepares the financial statements. They prepare all the footnotes. Management prepares all the schedules that you see. It's quite a large packet that is submitted for it, and all of those are prepared by management, and we as auditors just audit those. So there's a significant amount of work that goes into the preparation of these financial statements. We discuss our auditors' responsibilities, some of the procedures we perform. We also discuss what required supplementary information is included in these reports and our level of opinions on these. One of the major opinions is on the schedule of expenditures of financial awards that Karen related to, and as this group is well aware, your federal funding because of COVID has increased very significantly, and hopefully based upon the recent good news will continue to increase significantly. So, but what that does from an audit standpoint is require us as auditors to perform additional services. A major program is a program that expends more than $750,000 in federal expenditures. And as a result, over the last couple of years, Butte-Silver Bow has greatly increased the dollar amount and number of major programs that we're required to audit. I am happy to say that That schedule of expenditures of fairly award is, in our opinion, fairly stated in addition. So it is what we call an unmodified opinion. And I'm to the final page, which is page 4 of my opinion. We also reference compliance, which is management's internal control over compliance and internal controls. Next, I would direct you to the end of your packet called the single audit section. And those are the final pages of your packet. Unfortunately, they don't really have numbers on them, but it is a heading called the single audit section. After page 99 it is on your statements. And the first item I would direct you to is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And for the year ended June 30, 2024, Butte-Silver expended approximately $8.8 million of federal funds for the year. And also, just to let you know what's coming forward, they still have approximately $12 million of federal funds to expend in the future. So again, the numerous federal grants weren't all spent by this government. They were actually, funds have been maintained and used for additional projects. Pretty much the majority of these funds have been obligated, I would say, by now. You know, you've seen these projects as they come forward. So this $12 million will be basically expended in the next 2 to 3 years on numerous projects that were undertaken by the government. So our opinion was on those financial statements and that schedule of federal financial assistance. In addition to our audit opinion, we have an independent auditor, two actually audit reports. One report is on internal control and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards, and internal control and compliance in accordance with uniform guidance, which is federal audit standards. And I'm happy to say in both instances, the funds were expended in accordance with these standards, and there was no material problems or errors with it. We did have actually 2 findings that I'll discuss in the future, and those findings are internal control findings, and those findings do not relate to your federal financial assistance program, but more to your governmental compliance programs. And the findings that we reference in those reports begin 245. I don't think that's numbered either. So, in a section called Auditors' Comments and Prior Report Recommendations. That's the heading, right, and it's right at the very end, actually. And this is where we identify to your organizations the findings of our audits. These are unfortunately very, very familiar findings. For numerous years, we've had internal control findings on internal controls in offices outside the treasurer. What that means in short is you have numerous outside offices outside of the treasurer that actually collect and record cash. We actually have 3 findings on inadequate segregation of duties. At one time, these findings easily numbered more than 10. Management has been working each and every year to reduce these findings. We are down to actually 3 findings on inadequate segregation of duties. That's at the Parking Commission, the Civic Center, and the landfill. And as you can see, and it will be in the management response, the Civic Center and the landfill are just because of employment issues and management staffing issues. It's not really practical to hire one additional person in these areas. At the landfill, you have actually 1 person out there. It's just not feasible to have 2 people out there just to have proper internal controls. So, and management has responded to that. We recommend that you look at internal controls. At this point, management kind of says it's just not economically feasible at those areas. There are some compensating controls. There's deposits are reconciled and checked, but you just don't have segregation of duties at those areas. The Parking Commission is one of the other ones, and actually they are working with an internal control system and computerized software to strengthen those controls. Unfortunately, it wasn't all in place as of June 30, 2024. The hope is that those controls will be in place for this fiscal year once it does come. So that's our major findings on internal controls in offices outside the treasurer. And as always, we recommend that Butte-Silver Bow investigate feasibility of internal controls at these offices. Our second finding relates to the health department accounts receivable. And this is what we call a repeat findings. We've had this findings in our audit for a number of years. And it relates to immunization and family planning reconciliation of billings, collections, and adjustments to the accounts receivable ledgers on a monthly basis. This was not done on a monthly basis during the audit period. Proper internal controls require that this monthly accounting be done to manage your cash and receivables. We recommend that Butte-Silver Bow implement proper procedures to reconcile the immunization and family planning fees and related receivables. And on the final after that is prior report recommendations. And as you can see, as I've said before, those two findings were findings also in the prior year's audit. Management is required to respond in writing. And what you have on your final pages is a management letter dated January 31st, 2025, related to their response. This response is required to be sent to the state of Montana. And what it is management's response on what they're going to do to improve these internal control findings. And again, this letter is prepared by management in response to our audit findings. And so there's the condition and the management response in both of these areas. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Burt, for this presentation. This document is rather lengthy, and as this commission goes through and reviews it, I'm assuming any follow-up questions that a commissioner might have, Director Hassler, they can always reach out to you and ask for any clarification that they might have. So thank you both for the presentation. Do any of the commissioners have questions? Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Mr. Burt, thank you. Dr. Hassler, thank you. I don't think people are aware of, I surely am not, to the extent of how lengthy and difficult this process can be sometimes and the time that it takes. And so I just want to thank Dr. Hassler and her office. You're fresh at this, fairly fresh at this. And so I just want you to know that I'm very grateful for the work that you have presented us. To start, a couple questions though. First one for Mr. Burt. If we continuously see findings every single year, and I understand that like with the planning or parking and all of that, that it isn't feasible to hire somebody, but in the event of the health department, is there something that can happen if we don't remedy what you're finding?
Yeah, actually, as part of my audit procedures, we actually audit after June 30, 2024. That's when we're actually there. Butte-Silver Bow received something exactly like that from the state of Montana. It was a letter from the state dated in August, I believe.
That was our response, was in August. I believe their request was in July.
In July, from the state of Montana asking exactly that question. So that is the result of these findings. The state of Montana sent a request, and Karen can speak to that, of we see these findings, what are you doing about them? But management did respond, and Karen could probably speak more to that on what the response was, but exactly that to the answer to your question, that did occur. Director
Hassler.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, members of council. We received a letter from the Department of Administration in July asking exactly that. We see that you've had this same finding as from your auditor, and we need more information. We need to know what your plan is going forward. So we received the letter in July. I spoke to Chief Executive Gallagher. We spoke with the Health Department officer, Karen Malachny, and she wrote a response. She met with her staff, and they came up with a plan. They came up with a schedule. They laid out a plan of how they were going to correct this. Moving forward, they implemented that to a degree, not fully. There's still some reports, but the issue with that, at least from Mr. Burt's standpoint, is that was implemented after June 30th of 2024. So while we are taking steps to mitigate the issue and moving forward with implementing the full response to the Department of Administration, it occurred after the end of the fiscal year, so it's still a finding this year. So as long as, moving forward, we are, fully following the implementation of the schedule by June 30th of 2025, potentially, as long as the work is done and the accounts are reconciled, it will fall off as a finding in the next fiscal year.
Follow-up, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you for that explanation. Thank you, Director Malachny. I just wanted to clarify that in my brain. The second question is, we have talked a little bit about the metro rates, and could you explain what would happen if we fall below the 110% threshold that is required, that we need to stay above?
Sure.
Director Hassler.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, that is something that we need to monitor throughout the year. It's not just a date and time when we say June 30th, we're below that, especially this time of year when we're getting towards the end of the year and we're seeing where our expenditures are falling. At any point during the fiscal year, we fall below the 110% ratio, we are required to immediately raise the rates to mitigate that. And so that's something that we continually are looking at. In conversations with the chief executive and our budget that just went out, this is again something that we need to look at. Nobody likes to hear about rate increases, but these are not taxes; these are fees for services, and we can't subsidize our enterprise funds. They have to be self-sufficient, and so it's a necessary evil. The other piece of that is, if we don't look at these incremental rate increases, we go back to the issue that we had, I believe it was in 2011, where we were looking at 50% rate increases for water and for Metro because they hadn't been done for so long. And I think it's better to have small increases every single year or every other year, even if you kind of staggered between water and Metro. And the landfill. The landfill is another enterprise fund where, it's better to have these incremental increases than large increases all at once for everybody. It's just more economically feasible.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Thank you, Ms. Hassler. Thank you, Mr. Burt. My one question is, you had spoke about the federal grant money. The ARPA money we had to have under contract by the end of December, or they would claw it back. What are the odds that this $12 million could be clawed back under this crazy administration we got going on right now? Is there any safeguards we can protect that money, or do we got to get it under contract, or what can we do to protect that money we have allocated already?
Director Hassler.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Callahan, all of those funds have been obligated. They are all under contract. I have not heard from anywhere that anybody is looking to claw back ARPA funds that have been under contract or committed. I've heard of other agencies and their funds being clawed back or funding being cut, but I have not heard of any ARPA funding. Unless it wasn't. The requirement was those funds needed to be obligated and under contract by December 31st. of 2024. And if it wasn't, if any agency had funds that weren't obligated or committed or under contract, they were required to report that and send those funds back to the federal government.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner O'Leary.
Chairman Morgan, Director Hassler, thank you for this presentation. I just had one question. I'm not actually sure if this should be directed to you or somebody else, but the findings related to the segregation of duties, would that require another on-site employee to do that segregation, or could there be another staff person in the county that could take that segregation, that duty on to create that segregation?
Director Hassler.
Potentially, what we call those is compensating controls. And actually, you know, the small offices that have implemented that, it's through the state of Montana, has developed a very sophisticated system that requires each employee to have a drawer, each employee to reconcile daily. It probably involves quite a bit of software and management oversight. So, but very similar, who used to be on this list was the 2 JP offices and the city court. And once they implemented that system had controls in place designed to assist in this situation. So, and that, you know, just to give you some insight, that's what the Parking Commission is trying to get to that level at this point. But, you know, unfortunately out at the dump site, not a whole lot of computer sophistication there, and I don't think they've looked into, you know, that potential at this time, and I'm just not sure what's available. But there's a cost to everything, obviously, if you did try and implement something like that. The Civic Center is again kind of a unique thing in that because they're an event-driven organization, it's very difficult to have full-time employees there when you have events, for example, on the weekends and stuff like that. Very difficult to say, you know, we have the staff in place and on 40-hour-a-week positions to, in case we do collect money, we'll have compensating controls. So.
Any other questions? Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. Director Hassler, I think that this is kind of a follow-up to the 110%. What happens if I think they're called bond covenants, or I think that's correct. What happens if we default on bond covenants?
Director Hassler.
Chairman Morgan, Commissioner Thatcher, if we default on any part of our bond requirements, what it does is it would decrease our bond rating, and then in the future when we had to borrow money and bond for a project, then our interest rates would be higher, and it would come at a higher, higher interest rates or higher payments, which means higher taxes for our taxpayers in our community.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you both for the presentation.
Thank you.
Next item on tonight's agenda, Communication 2025-118. Before I read this caption, I am going to sincerely apologize for the pronunciation or the pronouncing of the names in this. So please, I am sorry for that. Dr. Angela Luking, Vice Chancellor of Research, requesting Council Commissioners' authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12, 2025 to share information pertaining to the current research initiatives at Montana Technological University. Dr. Luking.
Thank you.
All right, this Butte boy can be taught.
As you said, my name is Angela Lukey, and I'm the Vice Chancellor for Research at Montana Tech. I'm here to talk a little bit about what goes on at Montana Tech outside of the classroom, off the football field, and in the laboratories. So I've been asked to talk about the economic impact, emerging opportunities, and potential partnerships. We have a slate of faculty here to speak to you, so my job is to provide context and overview. Everything I'm about to share is enabled through a tremendous growth in federal research investment, combined with the hard work of our faculty and a helpful hand from our congressional delegation. In FY24, research expenditures on our campus were over $22 million. This is up from $14 million just a few years ago. These funds provide student wages, equipment, summer salaries for our faculty. They support our library, our facilities, environmental management, and faculty development. The pie chart that you see on this graph gives you an overview of the scope of these activities. You'll see materials, earth resources, water, health, and education. But perhaps the most exciting is the dark blue critical minerals piece of the pie that has grown significantly in the past 3 years. It represents the legacy of Montana Tech and of Butte. Next slide, please. Oh, do I have it? Oh. I should have been paying attention before. So this slide shows a few examples of what $22 million buys and opportunities to innovate for our students. On the left is a summer symposium we held in July regarding Material Army Research Lab. At the center are pictures from a trip our faculty and students made to Chile to establish an international research center. And at right is just a representation of the opportunities that arise from these activities that help drive the student experience and recruit students to Montana Tech. Roughly 70% of the federal funding, or $15 million per year, is used to invent and develop new technologies. And with that comes patents. 2024 was a record year for patent filing at Montana Tech, and our new Director of Technology Transfer actively seeks investors and partners to translate these ideas into practice. Montana Tech has invested $13 million in grant funding and equipment in the past 5 years. Amongst the advanced equipment listed on the slide, Montana Tech has the state's most advanced electron microscope, capable of viewing materials at an atomistic scale. We have the state's best clean room. Much of this equipment has established prices for outside use with expert assistance available. So we can work together to leverage these resources to draw new high-tech businesses to Butte. And of course, Montana Tech is about advancing the workforce. Earlier this year, we were the one university in the field of extractive engineering to receive a $6.5 million contract to advance the national and international workforce in critical mineral exploration, extraction, processing, and environmental management. Asynchronous online learning will enable working professionals, deployed military, veterans, as well as partner universities to realize the advantage of a Montana Tech education. We have incorporated a concentrated summer practicum to bring students from across the globe to Butte, starting in the summer of 2026. This initiative both captures the generational knowledge at Montana Tech and addresses a national priority area. And with that, I'm going to pass the microphone on to some of my colleagues, starting with Bob Morris, the Lands Energy Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Morris, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Morgan and Commissioners. My name's Bob Morris. I'm the Lands Energy Chair at Montana Tech. I've got 40 years of experience in energy and power systems, and my position is funded privately through the generous donation from Ryan Lance, a classmate of mine from the class of 1984 at Montana Tech. And so my job is to make sure Montana Tech continues to punch above our weight on the national energy stage. And I do that with two main areas. One is education, some of it on campus, but a lot of it off campus on energy technology, economics, policy, and the environment. Okay, so I do a lot of public speaking, and we do a lot of outreach. I also work on partnerships, and part of this is to build partnerships. Also part of it is to bring in more private funds to Montana Tech to broaden our funding base. And so I work with many industries. There's our core industries: mining, materials, electric power, oil and gas, and environmental. So I do a lot of working with, we've got a wonderful alumni network across the country and across the world, really, that I'm working to build relationships with. And then trade organizations like the Montana Petroleum Association or Montana Mining Association. And I do a lot of work with state and federal agencies. So the Montana Department of Environmental Quality, we work together on a lot of projects, and the Department of Energy. And also labs like Sandia National Labs. We've got a research project on integrating renewable energy sources, wind and solar, into the power grid. We also work with the Department of Energy and Idaho National Labs and Pacific Northwest National Labs. And just a couple projects that are pertinent to Butte. One is a geothermal energy project where we use mine water out of the Orphan Boy mine to heat one of the buildings on campus. That system's been there for about a dozen years, and we're working to get that back up and running. But we're also doing some research on how to harvest mine water economically and reliably, with an eye towards, could we do more space heating in Butte? We've got 10,000 miles of flooded mines with water between 78 and over 100 degrees C. So we're working with the General Service Administration on the project they've got going on at the courthouse on how to do that right. Another project we have is methane emission detection in the state of Montana with the Montana Petroleum Association. That's a DOE grant that we're one of the awardees on. The idea there is clean up the environment and keep our small oil and gas operators in business. And then finally, I do a lot of work on electric power, and so we're fortunate enough to just inherit another 600 megawatts of coal strip that gives us an energy guarantee for the next 20 years, but it emits carbon. So what's life after coal strip? And so we're working on those very challenging engineering, economic, and policy decisions. So with that, I'll turn it over to my next colleague, Raylene Brandel. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brandel, welcome.
Chair Morgan, Commissioners, I'm Raylene Brandel. I'm the Executive Director of Ripple. We've renamed. We were formerly known as the Clark Fork Watershed Education Program that you probably knew us as, but since we create ripples of change in our environment and in our schools, we decided that Ripple was an appropriate name. My university colleagues wouldn't let me not have a center name, so we're the Center for Education and Ecosystem Studies. And I had that as a, animation, but it's fine. So on the slide behind the nice graphic, you see our history of black and white, yellow dirt, and landscape that is barren, and there's the tailings, and then of course restoring, and then a picture of Durant Canyon with my students fly fishing in Durant Canyon and catching cutthroat. So that sums up our mission, is really to tell the story of what happened here, the legacy of environmental damages in the Superfund. And then as we started doing our work, we learned quickly that we needed to have teachers in our back pocket, and creating scientifically literate citizens requires teachers who are excellent at their job. And so getting our teachers up to speed and having delivered excellent science content for them was our core mission. And we've done a very good job in the last 20 years. So you can see our numbers. We've reached 84,660 students, 988 teachers trained. We've served 56 Montana communities to date, and we've won 22 national and regional awards, and we're about to make that number 23 on the slide. So if you go to BLDC Awards dinner, you might see some familiar faces, just saying. Our annual budget is about $1 million, and we consider ourselves an ecosystem to Montana Tech, meaning we're more than a pipeline. So we go to the places where students are, and we meet them where they are with their educational background, needs, and interests, hoping to pull them into our college in those engineering fields, looking for those patents, becoming biologists as well. We also provide 2 or 3 contracts with Butte-Silver Bow. So with one that we do every year is the Butte Reclamation Evaluation Survey. My students and myself go out and monitor all of the mine caps that we have restored or remediated. We have a stormwater education contract with Public Works, and then we have a small contract with Pit Watch Education Committee to help our community know about the impacts related to the Berkeley pit. Our goals in this next iteration for Ripple is to continue with those ripples of change. We are developing programming very in-depth right now with Yellowstone Watershed and working with Yellowstone across the divide. This summer we'll have teachers from our Clark Fork Watershed and the Yellowstone Watershed coming together with our scientists on campus to learn a lot about how to protect those environments long into the future, and especially in the face of the challenges that we have to our environmental policies across the nation. So I will turn it over to our next colleague. Oops.
Mr. Roos, welcome. Welcome. If that's...
Now I ruined it. I've never run this one.
How do we get back? Green.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Chris Ross. I am a faculty member in the Mining Engineering Department, and I've been here. I actually completed my bachelor's and master's at Montana Tech and went and worked in industry for a while, and I've been back here about 12 years as part of the community and a faculty member. I didn't follow the rules quite per se in talking about research, mostly because our mining engineering department is not research heavy. We do focus on our strong undergraduate presence. And it's kind of my privilege tonight to tell everybody that we are going to be celebrating our 125th anniversary this fall, starting in September. The doors opened at Montana Tech with mining engineering and electrical engineering as the founding programs, and we're the only program that has been around for the full 125 years. So we're looking forward to celebrating that in a major way next year. Also in the lower left, you see my nice little bar chart. Many of you are very familiar with the struggles Montana Tech has had with enrollment over the last 5 years. It's been up, down, and mostly down, but now we've started to see that recovery, and certainly within my department, we've seen it in a huge way, and I think that's kind of a statement of health towards where Montana Tech is heading in general. Our programs are certainly in demand right now. We've gone from 32 undergraduates in mining engineering in the spring of 2022 to 64 today. So we've almost doubled the size of our undergraduate program, which is getting us back to our kind of our historical average. So we're doing very well there. The other major topic that I like to talk about is our Underground Mine Education Center. And this center was developed about 2012 with the help of some federal funding, but it's since advanced through mostly private donations, a few small projects here and there, but it's the underground workings at the Orphan Boy Mine, which is immediately adjacent to the Orphan Girl complex that the World Museum of Mining utilizes. We're actually interconnected, and we work very, very closely with the World Museum of Mining. In fact, just today I was meeting with the contractor who's being selected to do some work at their underground facility so that we can share our facility and work together in that pursuit. But with the Underground Mine Education Center, it is both a teaching lab and a research lab. And so we do have to do a lot of things in a mining environment that is not as complicated as working in an operational mine. So we have companies that will come in, work with us on research projects. We have some small funded projects. You'll notice in the bottom center of our sheet there is our most popular thing right now is our robotic spot dog from Boston Dynamics. That is part of some of that federal funding through the Army Research Lab, looking at abandoned mines throughout Montana and how do we investigate those. And when we don't want to put a person into harm's way in an underground mine, robotics is the way of the future and the way we need to go. So we're doing a little bit of work in that space as well. With that, Spot's likely first abandoned mine that it will actually be going to this spring is we've started working with the kind of new company on the block, Silver Bow Mining, who's taken on the Blackjack Silver company that had been working in Butte. So Silver Bow Mining, one of their first stops with the new leadership was on Montana Tech's campus to ask for help in a number of ways. And so we're planning on having Spot do some robotic exploration on the Chief Joseph Decline. And then we've also got a couple senior design project teams working with that group. So we can help the community in a couple different ways. So with that, I'll turn it over to, I believe it's Jerry Downey.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. Downey, welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan and Commissioners. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Jerry Downey, as Chris introduced, and I'm the Department Head of Metallurgical and Materials Engineering, and I also double as the Campus Director of the Materials Science PhD program at Montana Tech. And we're proud of that. That was the first PhD program to come to the campus. A little bit about metallurgical materials. That 5-syllable word sometimes is a little bit off-putting. Basically what we are experts in the structure, properties, process of materials. And certainly we have a strong legacy in this area. Mineral processing, such as they do here in Butte, is something that falls within our wheelhouse. Smelting and refining like they used to do in Anaconda and Great Falls. And also this new entire world of materials engineering, which entails all sorts of areas of endeavor: metals, ceramics, polymers, nanomaterials, electronic materials, biomaterials, and so on. We're a very strong research component in our department, and it's historically been that case. This year, this academic year, about $4.4 million in funded research, which is about 25% of the total that Dr. Lukin reported. We've got 14 projects going on behalf of 7 sponsors, and you can see the logos for several of our sponsors up there on the right-hand side of the slide. A couple of them that I'd really like to acknowledge. One is the Army Research Laboratory, DEVCOM. They were responsible for several $1 million worth of research at the campus and have been a tremendous benefactor in many ways. Much of that $1.4 million in new process equipment that we're showing there has been as a result of the research that's been funded through the Army Research Laboratory. Another group that I'd like to point to is Nucor. They're probably right now our strongest industrial proponent. They're funding one of our professorships. They're also funding, if you see down at the bottom of that first column, the new steel-making research and laboratory that's currently under construction, and we're hoping to be able to commission that laboratory for the fall semester. A couple of other things I'd like to point out. In addition to our extractive capabilities, we do a lot of materials. So on the lower left-hand side and the lower right-hand side are 2 of our projects that have been ongoing for some time. They're getting very close to being ready for commercialization. We're taking them to the pilot plant stage this year. The continuous flow material recovery system, I obviously don't have time to explain the details, but basically what that is, it's a novel method for continuous ion exchange using something that's very common, inexpensive, called magnetite. Just that black material. If you run a magnet through dirt here in Butte, you're going to pick up a lot of magnetite. It turns out that that's a great adsorbent for dissolved metals. So if you have a solution that's contaminated, mine water, Berkeley pit water with metals, you can use the magnetite to collect the metals, then you can strip the metals from it, have a concentrated solution, and then what you're doing is turning a waste into a product. On the right-hand side, high-entropy alloy bonded carbide powders. It's a pretty exciting area. What we're doing is nanotechnology. If you look at those little crystalline hexagons, those are molybdenum carbide. And if you were to take about 50 of those, put them end to end, it would be about the diameter of a human hair. So they're very excited. The Army in particular is excited about some of the applications that we can do with that. So we're kind of making a marriage between what we've done there, which is a very novel process for reducing those little particles, and high entropy alloys, which is a relatively new area of research. It's only been around for about 20 years. Essentially what you do is you take about the same number of atoms of 5 different elements, mix them together, and when you do that, and if you do it just right under the conditions of temperature and pressure, you get a new substance that has remarkable properties in many cases. So here what we're hoping to do is replace cobalt as a binder for cemented carbides. We can free up a lot of cobalt for other more important applications. So I'll conclude with that and turn it over to my colleague Rick Leducer, who is the Department Chair for Mechanical Engineering.
Thank you. Mr. Leducer.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move it forward. Let's see if I get it right. Got it. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. Talking about mechanical engineering a little bit. Mechanical engineering is the largest department at Montana Tech. In engineering, we have about 200 undergraduate students. We have about 25 graduate students in our program. So just some of the important things that Butte-Silver has helped us with recently. You guys sent Planning Director Crane with us down to Chile for a discussion on sustainable minerals and trying to come up with new technologies and new efforts to make sure that we have the materials necessary as we continue to go forward. So that's kind of a mining aspect of it. And then we're working on a proposal related to sustainable energy technologies here in the West. We currently have a large amount of forest waste that can be used as an energy tool, and we're working on those projects. And so Butte-Silver has generously provided letters of support and other things to help us with those technologies. I like to focus on students, so we can see we got Max Tripke down there in Chile presenting his poster. Leighton Bondmiller, he had an internship at NASA, kind of related to, you can see that dome up there in the upper left where we're trying to come up with better ways to do additive manufacturing and those type things. So wide range of projects we currently have with a wide range of funding sources, and we're just looking to grow them, and we appreciate the support of Butte-Silver on that. And with that, I'll pass it to next, which is Robert Paul.
Mr. Paul, welcome.
So, Chair Morgan and Commissioners, thank you for having us here tonight. So we heard about minerals extraction and mining that has been going on here in Butte, we know now over a century. And so our program actually deals with putting Humpty Dumpty back together, I would say. Everybody knows that reclamation and I would say mine rehabilitation is very important here. So we are lucky enough to have an open laboratory here for finding answers to different questions that rises from all of these. So I'm, as I was told, Robert Powell, and I'm a professor here at Montana Tech, and I'm leading the Ecological Restoration Master's Program and the certification for restoration. We have a good number of students who are taking restoration besides their other majors, and we have growing number, I would say, of master students in ecological restoration who all are trying to find better ways to restore mainly the Butte area, because why should we go to East Coast or West Coast when we have everything here in our backyard? So you just see a couple of nice pictures there. Students working in the greenhouse, working with contaminated dirt. We are actually a very hands-on program. We have been working together with Butte-Silver since I came to Montana Tech since 2015, and have developed a really good partnership, I would say. We actually planting together into sites. Some of you are very familiar to me because you've been also participating at our planting events when we are doing those in the fall. Our native plant program, which is funded by the Natural Resource Damage Program, has been producing over 5,000 native plants every year that is put out into the ground in the Butte area. So far, out on those 600 acres of Butte, we worked on at least 75 sites and put out there over 70,000 individual plant species that were shrubs and forbs and all kinds of things to actually have the environment better. So I would like just to encourage us to actually work together and have that collaboration ongoing, which I don't think it's hard, because as we have mining ongoing and it looks like it's a bigger need for it, I think we just must do it. So thank you for listening to me, and I'm just giving my word to the next speaker, who will be Robin Bullock. Thank you so much.
Ms. Bullock, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Chairman and Council. I'm here presenting on environmental engineering. The department head, Dr. Kniesen, wasn't able to make it, so I'm pitch hitting for him a bit, so thank you for your time. I wanted to put up, I'm also a graduate of Montana Tech. The environmental engineering program is approximately 50 years old. I was one of the first graduates. Please don't do the math. So I've been around for quite a while. More recently, came back to Montana Tech to teach. I love working with the students, and I think enabling them to have hands-on opportunities is one of the best things we can do. I was a first-generation student. I'd never gone, none of my family had ever gone to college, so I needed that very small college atmosphere that Tech provides, and a very supportive faculty that they have. So some of the pictures up here, the very top one, Chris Roos mentioned the underground mine. One of the things that we want to look at is how can we re-envision mining of the future? And one of the things that we're doing is in the underground mine, we've reinvented or reinvigorated a greenhouse. And in that greenhouse, we're actually attempting to biomine or phytomine the residual metals within the low-grade ores and the water that's still there. Can we actually recover some of these utilizing vegetation? They do it in some other countries. Let's see if we can do it here. Some of the other things you've got, we did the solar platform where we worked with Highlands College. They created the structure of the head frame. We put solar panels on it to show how can we incorporate some of the concepts of what makes Butte great as far as the head frames and the histories with some future energy associated with it and make it much more interactive with students. Biochar was one of the elements that Rick Leducer mentioned. We've been working with Butte-Silver to try to see if we could create biochar devices that we could utilize so that we can reduce our hazardous fuels and actually look to how can we improve agricultural lands and some of the productivity associated with it. We received funding, and we're actually moving to a small-scale pilot facility up at Montana Resources. Right now, you all know that they currently remove copper, sometimes between 75 to 90% of the copper out of the Berkeley pit before it goes to water treatment. The next highest concentration of metal in that water is zinc. So we're trying to develop a technique to recover that zinc before it goes through water treatment. Again, how much of this can we remove and actually recover before treating it as a waste material? And then students we're all about that. To the extent we can utilize them, they can create and co-create with us. That's what we like to do. We have a lot of collaborations with Butte-Silver through Public Works, through Planning Department, through the Health Department, and we greatly appreciate you all's time to work with us and our students because they appreciate it, appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And we have one last one. Which button do I push? Thanks.
Mr. Elgren.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan and Commissioners. It's really a pleasure for us to be able to talk with you tonight. We appreciate the invitation to be with you. And I'm the provost at Montana Tech, Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. And so I'm just delighted that you got an opportunity to hear from some of our best and brightest, see some of the creativity and innovation that's happening on our campus. Under some tremendous leadership, there's been really unprecedented growth for us. We've got a big year coming up. We're excited about our partnerships with the community. It's the 125th anniversary that was mentioned. We're also going to be welcoming a new chancellor. So that will be sort of the front end of our partnership and building relationships, further relationships with you folks. We appreciate the opportunity tonight for you. We appreciate your introduction to our new potential suitors, which we didn't know about and can't talk about. But we appreciate the introduction here in public, and now it's a bigger opportunity for us to have those discussions, which is great. I think as they mentioned, this came from the Department of Corrections and the governor down through the OCHE, the Commissioner of Higher Education, and so we'll be next in line in terms of hearing about what this might look like. But we're excited to think about what those prospects might be. This has been something on our radar screen for quite some time. But it looks like there's maybe some promising opportunities there. But back to this presentation, I think as we think about our relationship with you folks, really we had an open invitation for you to participate in our campus master planning. You would not have seen anything about a Department of Corrections because we didn't know about it. So it's a fluid plan that's open to change as opportunities arise, but that's the way those plans work. But we really appreciate the opportunity to get your input on our thinking about the future of that campus, which is ripe for growth and ripe for renovation. We've got two major projects that are underway right now, the renovation of two historic buildings, engineering and main hall. Those will begin this summer with moving people out of those buildings. So we're excited. The chancellor said when he was first looking for job opportunities, he said, if you go to a campus that isn't building, there's nothing happening there. So we're going to look like a really attractive place for the next few years because there's going to be a lot happening. research and development, technical assistance, all the kinds of ways that we reach out for partnerships in the community are things that we're going to look to continue to cultivate. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk with you tonight, and thank you for this opportunity. Thanks, and thanks to my colleagues for taking time and sharing with you some of the really exciting things that are happening. I'd remind you, that's just a snapshot of some of the exciting things that are happening in the classroom, in the laboratories, and out in the field. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for coming tonight. It's always good to see what's going on the campus. You know, even though we're so close, we're so far away in regards to what's going on. I almost wish I was going back in time and I was going to tech now compared to when I went, because it's a lot more, you know, hustle and bustle than it was even back in 2005. So congratulations and thank you all for coming tonight. Do any of the commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. First, I just want to comment. Thank you, folks, for coming. You got quite a group there. We appreciate everything you do. I just want to wish Mr. Roos good luck in his competition coming up. The mining team's traveling to London, I think, on Friday, are they?
Yes, sir. 30 students are going to London on, I think, Friday, and we'll be gone about 10 days.
10 days, and last year you guys won the overall competition, and hopefully you can bring that back again this year. And then I also have one question for Mr. Morris, if I could. You had mentioned something about you inherited the electricity from Colstrip. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Callahan. So at the end of this year, or actually January 1st of 2026, Northwestern Energy will take over the shares of Colstrip from Avista Utilities, which is in Spokane area, and that's, trying to remember the number off the top of my head, that's about 200 megawatts, and at the same date, they're acquiring the shares from Puget Sound Energy, that's 390 megawatts, so somewhere on the order of 600 megawatts, giving Northwestern Energy the majority share of Colstrip.
Wow, that's huge. We kind of learned what megawatts were when this cryptocurrency came to town, and Butte right now is the largest power producer in the whole state, our user in the whole state. The top two power users are top three now. Correct. Counting them, yeah, it was MRI and ASME. And what was it? ASME was about 60 megawatts and MRI was about 50. So the amount you're talking is massive. That's incredible. That's a great deal.
That's correct, yes. And the third is Atlas Data Centers here in Butte at 65 megawatts. Wow. 3 largest loads in Montana.
That's impressive.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. I don't have any questions, just comments. I just appreciate you guys' time coming up. Great presentations. Again, I maybe should go up and see what's going on up there. There's a lot going on, and definitely appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. An honest to God story. I graduated from Butte High and I declared my major coming out of high school in metallurgy and thought that'd be great, and then realized I didn't know even how to spell metallurgy and thought that I'd better figure out something else. And so listening to all of this, and listening to your guys' presentations tonight, it is fascinating what our little small campus has done for the world, honestly, not just Butte-Silver, but for the world. And you guys are providing students, you're providing millions of people with solutions to real world problems. And I just think it's incredible to have that in our backyard. And I just hope that you recognize that we at Butte-Silver feel just as, if not more fortunate to have you guys as partners in all of this. So just very grateful for you guys' presentation tonight, and just want you to know I really appreciate being an alumnus of Montana Tech, but just being here to witness the greatness that you guys put out. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo what my colleagues have said. I'm so proud. I'm so proud that we have this level of professionalism and education and science, and I'm so proud to have that right in our community, like Commissioner Thatcher was saying. Butte has a legacy of giving to the world. And we still are, in more ways than we did before. And I just want you guys to know how meaningful it is. I didn't get to graduate from Tech, but 2 of my kids did. So I have a really strong attachment to Tech, and the education, the science, the solving hard problems that occurs here. I think because we're so close to it all the time, we kind of forget. And so to have you here and just sing your own praises from the rooftops is just like so great. So thank you so much for everything you do and for being here.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, thank you all again. Have a good evening. Moving on to section 2, communications. Number 1, communication 2025-80. Zach Osborne, Butte-Silver Bow Fire Chief, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on March 19th, 2025 to present a final draft of the long-range master plan for the Butte-Silver Bow Fire Department. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending the March 19th presentation. Number 2, communication 2025-81. Kelly Moody, Senior Companion Program Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation on March 5th, 2025 to request continuation of financial support for Rocky's foster grandparent and senior companion programs. We did have this presentation last week, so I would ask that this body place this communication on file. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2025-81 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place 5-81 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3, communication 2025-90. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a bid opening on March 19th, 2025 for the Howard Avenue Total Reconstruction Project for the Roads Division. We'll continue to hold that in abeyance pending the March 19th bid opening. Number 4, communication 2025-109. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12, 2025 for Director Brian Gutkin, Department of Corrections, to discuss the future DOC plans in Butte-Silver Bow. As you all know, we did have this presentation tonight. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Morgan. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2025-109 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 2025-109 on file. Is there anything on? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Motion passes. Next, communication 2025-110. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 12, 2025 regarding the addition of unanticipated revenue to the 24-25 budget in the amount of $200,000 to assist with the redevelopment of the Phoenix Building. As you all know, we did have this public hearing tonight. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2025-110 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 20 on file. Is there anything on the question? Seeing none, would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yeas, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Motion passes. Communication 25-111. Karen Burns, Community Development Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 12, 2025 regarding the addition of unanticipated revenue to the 24-25 budget in the amount of $20,000 to assist with relighting the head frames on the Butte Hill. We did hold this public hearing tonight. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2025-111 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made in second, 2025-111 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay. Yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Communication number 2025-116, Karen Hassler, Finance and Budget Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12, 2025 for Pat Burt, partner, Newland and Company PC in the Finance and Budget Department to present the fiscal year 24 annual comprehensive financial report, schedule of federal awards, audit findings, and related audit opinions. We did hold this presentation as well. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to place communication number 2025-116 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to place communication 5-116 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 8, communication number 2025-118, Dr. Angela Luking, Vice Chancellor for Research, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a presentation for March 12, 2025 to share information pertaining to current research initiatives at Montana Technological University. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I'd like to place communication number 2025-118 on file.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded, 25-118 on file. Is there anything on the question? Would everyone please vote? Would anyone like to change their vote? Would the clerk please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 9, communication 2025-122, Karen Malogny, Butte-Silver Bow Health Officer, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to schedule a public hearing on March 19th, 2025 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 24-25 budget to allow for increased expenditures of unanticipated revenue resulting from a contract award with the Montana Department of Health and Human Services in the amount of $102,499. We'll continue to hold this in abeyance pending the March 19th public hearing. Next item on tonight's agenda is public comment on any public matter that's not on the agenda. If there's any member of the public that would like to speak on any public matter that's not on the agenda, now would be your time. Okay, seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
On the question, Commissioner Fisher? Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?